that's when I decided to do a personal challenge in December 2019. And it was like, it wasn't PodRevDay, it was PodRevMo, Podcast Review Month. And then people started to go, oh, can I join you? And I was like, what? Okay.
I'm here with Stephanie Fuccio, who is a podcaster and podcast editor in Albania. Thanks for joining me, Stephanie, for the Walk Talk Challenge.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
So one of the things I'd like to talk about is the who are you? So if you could give our listeners a brief who you are, and then we'll go into the rest of it.
Sure. Thank you. Stephanie Fuccio. I am a podcaster, but I have many spokes to the podcasting wheel. I am an editor, as Jennifer said. I also am the instigator of Podcast Review Day, PodRevDay, which happens on the 8th of every month on Twitter. No accident in that. And I'm also a huge podcast listener. I was a podcast listener back when you had to drag the audio files onto your little MP3 device.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty.
I love podcasts.
That is pretty old school, because you just had me go flashback to the 06, 07, 05 kind of years.
Yeah. Oh, even early. Yeah, a little bit earlier than that. I think in countries, because I'm an American expat. Currently, I'm in Albania, but I think the first time I remember doing that, I was in Vietnam, and that was early 2005. So yeah, exactly.
Amazing. So, okay, so what is it that you do? You mentioned you kind of have a lot of spokes in the wheel, or a lot of fingers in the pie. Talk a little bit about that in depth, because we want to look at the freelance aspect of what you do.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So focusing on the freelance stuff, the biggest spokes there are going to be the podcast editing for clients. And I've been starting to write about podcast editing for a few different publications, and I'm sort of microblogging about it on LinkedIn too. And I've got a podcast editing newsletter. So apparently I'm enjoying writing about podcast editing. I've gone down a very big DAW comparison rabbit hole, and it's been a little fun. It's been a lot fun. It's really interesting to see how the different DAWs do, the digital audio workstations, how they function differently, and how you can do different things in them, and which superpowers which DAW has and doesn't have, that kind of thing. And then Podcast Review Day is a podcast review share. It is not a follow for follow kind of thing. It's more of avid listeners posting passionate, genuine reviews on Twitter with the hashtag PodRevDay. And we do that on the 8th of every month. And it's been going, gosh, I want to say 15 months now.
Yeah, I think it's great, because the reality is, I myself, I'm raising my hand here as I'm walking in my neighborhood. I myself listen to a lot of podcasts, and I have not left them all reviews. And yet I've been listening to them for years. So it's not that I don't enjoy them, but I haven't taken the time to go let them know I enjoy them in a way that's public facing. I will send them at messages all the time and say, oh, that was a really great episode, or I really like this. But by putting it in a public space where folks who have never heard that episode before, that really makes a big difference to the discoverability for them. And it's kind of like Amazon reviews, right? Before you buy something that you're not really familiar with, don't you go look at all the Amazon reviews to see if you like it? Well, that's what reviews are for podcasters. And it's also kind of I don't want to say ego like in a bad way, but it's also kind of like a boost, because when you're doing podcasting for yourself and you're doing those 3 a.m. editing sessions, a review is your payment.
Yep. Yes. And it's funny that we're talking about this now, because it's actually, when I interviewed you at the end of NaPodPoMo in 2019, you were my last episode, my last interview. And I found myself, as I was editing that episode, I found myself whining about not getting reviews. And I was listening to myself and thinking, I don't review. Wait a minute, what am I complaining about? And that's when, after November was over with NaPodPoMo, that's when I decided to do a personal challenge in December 2019. And it was it wasn't PodRevDay, it was PodRevMo, Podcast Review Month. And then people started to go, oh, can I join you? And I was like, what? Okay. But 30 days in a row was too much. And so I picked one day a month to move forward, and it kept going. And I think just getting into that habit and knowing that it's coming, and I actually put stuff in my calendar now. When I listen to a good episode, I'm like, oh, I put that on the 8th. I'm like, review this one. And so it's just getting into that habit that makes it so much easier to do.
I love
and to have that public accountability. Yeah.
I love that idea so much. So for those of you who don't know, NaPod Pomo is a challenge, another 30-day challenge
Mhm.
I created back in 2007. Okay, so now talk about some of when you look at your business and where it potentially could go, like what's the
Mhm.
sweet spot? What is that ideal scenario where it's enough work that keeps you stimulated and interested and also is financially
Mhm.
viable, but not so much that you're overwhelmed and bogged down? What does that look like for you?
It looks like weekends are free. That's as far as I've gotten so far. Because right now I tend to, because I take long walks during the day because the weather's so nice, and I tend to like stretch my work over 7 days for the past. Well, I've done that for the past couple of months, and it's not sustainable.
Hmm.
So at this point, I'm trying to figure out how to squeeze it into 5 days while still getting a healthy nature walk in.
Hmm.
So that's the trick, and I'm getting more organized, more streamlined, that kind of thing. And I'm hopefully, not hopefully, with time, it will not expand. What's the opposite of expand?
Contract?
Thank you. Contract down to more of a work week, so I can have some days where I'm not doing anything. But it's hard with creative stuff because ideas come all the time, right?
Hmm. You get
Mm,
inspired and then you're on fire.
exactly. So with my own podcast, it's hard to cut that off because it's like, well, this isn't work. This is fun work, but it's still draining if it's all the time, all the time. So I'm trying to find that financial and creative balance, and I really want that to be less of 7 days.
Hmm.
That's the current bit.
Yeah, I think that's the freelance entrepreneur business owner's challenge,
Hmm.
is trying to
Hmm.
have time for yourself because you will burn out. And that's something that we're all like doing. These walks for me is a way for me to move and to get away from the computer. I got my phone, but
Hmm.
I'm walking around, I'm looking at the trees, I'm listening to the birds, I'm feeling the air. It's
Exactly.
totally different experience, and it definitely helps. So where can folks go to follow you? Because I have to tell you, listener, that Stephanie is extremely visible. Like she's been putting out some amazing content about. She just talked about the digital audio workstations. I'm actually. It's so funny, Stephanie, because I'll be in an entirely different group of folks that I don't know if they know you, but I don't think they do. And somebody will say, "Hey, I just saw this really great article about this," and then I'll go click on it, and it's by you.
Oh my God! You just made my day.
That's
You
happened.
just made my
That's
day.
happened
That's
twice.
amazing.
I clicked on an article because someone said, "Hey, I just found this really good article about this, and I thought it'd be helpful to folks in this group." And it's you, and I'm like, I know Stephanie.
Oh, that's so amazing. Okay, so the central place they can find me, as if there is one, but I do have a website, stephfuccio.com, STEPHFUCCIO. I am at Steph Fuccio everywhere on the socials. I've got the same, because of my unique last name, I have my name all over the place. However, in the month of April for Geopats Podcasting, which is one of the podcasts in my network, we're doing live global women podcast editor panels on April 6th, 13th, 20th, and 27th. So if you actually go to my website and then /Geopats Podcasting, you'll see the bio, the lovely pictures of all of the women, the links to the tickets that are free, and we'll be live streaming on YouTube and probably Facebook. And it's every Tuesday of the month, but different times because it's global guests. So there is that as well.
I love it. So last thing, any words of wisdom for someone who is thinking about doing what you're doing right now? They're barely starting. It's a half an idea in their head. What's your words of wisdom for them?
Oh my gosh. Ah, and words of wisdom. I want to say take it slow, but I didn't do that, so that's hypocritical. Jump in and breathe later, I suppose.
Well, I love that. I think that closes us out. Thank you so much, Steph.
Thank you.